Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 242, and I'm so excited to bring you this episode today because I am talking to Eric Berlin, who is the author of a middle grade series called The Puzzling World of Winston Breen, as well as a bunch of different puzzle books. And Eric's so fascinating because, first of all, the middle grade series is great because interspersed within the story are puzzles to solve that the main character is solving as he goes along. And some of the puzzles are very, very important to the story. So he gives you the answers right away in case you haven't found them yet. But then others are kind of secondary to the story, but still fun. So those answers are shared in the back. So it gives you a little bit more opportunity to solve puzzles on your own. And he's just got a great brain for puzzling. In this conversation today, we talk about the importance of puzzles with your kids, doing them with your kids, and introducing your kids to them. We talk about the different skills that they bring out and how important critical thinking and creative thinking and logical thinking are to the world that our kids are growing up in. When we introduce our kids to puzzles, we are giving them an opportunity to learn the skills they need to be adaptable in today's world of jobs and other things. We can't predict all of the different things that are going to be available to our kids in the future. And by introducing them to puzzles, we give them an opportunity to learn as they go. So before we begin, I just want to say special thank you to CTC Math for always supporting us. You'll hear more about them later in this episode. But if you haven't had a chance yet, check out ctcmath.com and let me know what you think about this episode. I encourage you to go over to the show notes where you'll find links for all of the books that Eric has written, as well as links to other puzzle opportunities on the internet and in person. And you'll have a chance to leave me a comment or a voicemail message about what you thought about this episode. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts. All right, pop those earbuds in and let's get on with today's episode. Super excited to be here today with a new to me guest and author, Eric Berlin. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. You reached out to me and I had not heard of your books before and was super excited to dive more deeply into them and your story and what you do. So can you just take a second here and kind of introduce yourself to podcast listeners? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what's so interesting and kind of different about what you write about and how you write them.
Well, my name is Eric Berlin. I am a writer and a puzzle maker. These days, more the latter than the former. But I wrote 3 books for kids, mysteries for middle grade readers. And these mysteries have puzzles all through the narrative. The first book was The Puzzling World of Winston Breen. Winston Breen is a 12-year-old puzzle fanatic, just like I was when I was 12 years old. And he and his friends get to go on several adventures and solve some mysteries. And along the way, they've got to solve a whole bunch of different puzzles. And the reader is invited to solve them along with Winston. I don't always give the answer immediately. Sometimes you have to look in the back. I want the reader to also have the joy of solving these puzzles. My most recent gigs are not fiction. I've turned into a sort of professional puzzle maker, and my main outlet is something called Puzzle Snacks. I started this when we were homeschooling my daughter. We used to solve the Monday New York Times crossword together when she was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And she was able to fill in some things, but there were, she didn't know airport codes and opera singers and stuff like that. So I started making puzzles with all of that crosswordese taken out. Snack size little variety puzzles that you could solve in one sitting and that kids could solve, adults could solve, parents and kids could solve together. And it's been a really fun experience.
I love that. And we're going to talk about both of those kind of different paths that you took, but I want to come back first to that idea of solving puzzles together, and that not having all the background knowledge to do so is so interesting. When I was in the classroom teaching and I taught gifted students, I often wrapped their lessons, in puzzles, or had them make them, because that's a whole different skill, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Creating them is different than solving them, which is
It sure is, of course.
and it's very, very cool, and especially cool for kiddos who think outside the box and think a little bit differently. So the the puzzle snacks that you have, these small bite-sized snacks, can you tell me a little bit, are they all, and I know the answer to this because I flipped through puzzle snacks, but they're not all crossword puzzles, right? So
They're not at all crossword puzzles. I like crosswords. I love crosswords. I solve crosswords every day. That kind of puzzle, crossword puzzles, the words go across, the words go down. That is not the only way to weave words together. There's dozens, hundreds of other ways of doing it. And so I am a big advocate for variety puzzle. Crosswords, but not really. In a crossword puzzle, the words go across, the words go down. In a puzzle snacks puzzle, there's often a third element that you have to keep in mind. Oh, this word goes here, but how many letters go in each space? Or, oh, the word goes here, but do I need to enter it forwards or do I need to enter it backwards? So there's a little bit extra little fillip on it that keeps the solver on his toes. And there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. I have dozens of different kinds of variety types that I rotate through on a week by week basis. And they're just fun. It's fun to have a little variety in there.
yeah, there's so many things out there, and a lot of times, we don't think about the different skills that go into solving puzzles and trying these different things. Like I was saying for listeners before we started recording, that I've started reading The Puzzler's Mansion, the second. I think it's the second in the Walt in
It's the third of the
third.
trilogy.
Okay, gotcha. So I got the third first, so now I've got to go backwards and get the others. But and the main character is in class making anagrams of the things that his history teacher is droning on and on about. And the creativity and the thinking skills that go into simple things like anagramming words that are being said to you, mixing those up. Can you talk a little bit about some of those different skills? Because a lot of times people just think, oh, they're puzzles, they're a waste of time, or they're just like fluff, or something to do in your spare time. But no,
Oh,
these are things we should be
goodness.
doing all the time.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's been a long time since I've met anybody who considered puzzles to be trivial and
Right.
and not worth exploring, because I'm very deeply involved in the puzzle community. This is an outrage. Puzzles aren't worth doing. Puzzles are inherently educational. I don't make my puzzles educational because I don't have to make my puzzles educational. They come out of the box educational. At the most basic level, it's a vocabulary test. Here's the clue. Do I know the answer to this clue? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, you put it in. If it's no, then you move on. But then we move on to language logic skills. I didn't know the answer to this puzzle, but now I'm going to try an answer that intersects it. And now I have a couple of letters in that clue I didn't know. Do I know it now? Can I use the clue that I have given myself to build on my knowledge and now solve that clue? And now the answer is yes, I was able to. That's a very important skill to develop. You know, outside of crosswords, I don't know how to do this, but I do know how to do this. Can I build on my own knowledge to get where I need to go?
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. And to build on that a little bit, I would love for you to speak as a homeschool dad, just the idea, because I know that this is super common, especially with all moms or dads, but especially parents who are homeschooling their kids, right? Because we're responsible for all of the things. And so we feel that everything has to be productive, or when it doesn't look productive, then we're failing our kids, or they're not going to measure up, and just all of those things. So can you address that idea of why it's important to incorporate things like puzzles and games and the kind of thinking, that the logical thinking, like you were talking about, that goes into it, getting away from just thinking about education as curriculum type stuff.
Oh yeah. No, it gets puzzles, puzzly video games. They all get your kids thinking in different ways. And you learn about how your kids think just by observing them. There's a great classic puzzle video game called Portal. It's ostensibly a first person shooter, but you're not shooting bullets, you're shooting teleportation portals. You
Mm-hmm.
put one in one wall, you put one in another wall, now you can go through the portal and out the other side. And with this mechanism, you're solving these very complicated mazes. Playing this game with my daughter, played it she's 21 years old now, and we played it last night. We started playing it when she was 10. And I learned that she's an incredible visual thinker by watching her play this game. I didn't know that. And she started becoming an artist at around that time. Just all the visual puzzles that she was solving and all the art that she was doing, it really helped her blossom into the person that she is today. Uh, she would not be who she is today without some of those difficult puzzle video games that we played together. And with Portal in particular, she was designing video game levels. She was making the rooms and setting up where the traps were. She didn't think that had anything to do with homeschooling. I knew it did. And I just loved watching her do it. And I loved playing through her levels. It was a vital part of our homeschool day.
Yeah, I love that part of all of this is when we let our kids just show their creativity or we play with them, seeing who they are kind of start to develop from there. One of my kids, my youngest in particular, is more of an algorithmic thinker than I thought he was because we have 4 kids and all of them have very strong personalities. So then the baby kind of gets talked over and talked for all the time, right? So he's 10 years younger than his older brother. And I started introducing him to matrix puzzles, logic, deductive reasoning, those kinds of things, because I love those. And he whipped through them so quickly because he'd read something that would trigger another thing. And then he'd skip ahead to look because he knew that he needed to extrapolate and then combine things and then synthesize the data from the other clues in order to get to where he needed to go. It was so fascinating watching his brain work in that way. And then my other kiddo, who's 14, she is very visual thinking. It sounds like your daughter, and loves to create picture clues and challenge her siblings. And this is a kid who, one of the things she does to show she loves everyone around her is she creates random scavenger hunts for her
Oh,
siblings with riddles and picture cues and clues to get them sent throughout the house. And all of these include the creative thinking skills like you talked about and the visual thinking or strategic thinking and logical thinking, but there are so many other thinking skills that come from playing games, video games, puzzle games. And actually puzzles are integrated into more than we think because we think about crossword puzzles or mazes or word searches because those are easy to think about and pop up, but there's so many different skills. How can we as parents incorporate more of that into our kids' lives without it seeming like we're trying to push kind of things on them so they become visual thinkers or critical thinkers or logical thinkers? What would your suggestion be to parents?
I mean, the question is, how do you incorporate this into your curriculum without making it, Johnny, we're going to sit down and solve this right now? I mean, I think part of it is the attitude.
Mm-hmm.
These puzzles are inherently, I keep using the word inherently, puzzles are fun. And as long as you don't tromp all over that fun, I think you're going to be okay. The main thing that I would recommend is listening to your kid. What, even if kid isn't necessarily saying anything, but just read the room. Are they enjoying this puzzle? There's a bunch of different puzzle types out there. Eventually my daughter kind of stopped enjoying doing the word puzzles with me because that's not her thing. And we gravitated over to logic puzzles and, as I say, the puzzly video games and stuff like that. And that is super cool. And I'm sure somewhere out there is a kid for whom it is the reverse. I don't want to do Sudoku. I love this crossword puzzle. So go with what your kid is saying and take this journey together to the specific puzzles that your kids are going to enjoy. If your kid comes up short in some skill, this particular brand of logic skill because they don't enjoy Sudoku, who cares? They'll have other skills instead. Let them develop those. They don't have to develop everything across the board. Just find the stuff they're good at and help them develop that.
Yeah, I love that particular point you just made with the idea that our kids don't have to be good at everything, right?
Yeah,
They need to be exposed widely and with variation, but we also need to pay attention to who they are and who they're meant to be, and feed them more in that area of strength and passion and interest. I love that idea.
absolutely.
You mentioned to me earlier in our correspondence about puzzle hunts and challenges and things like that people can get involved with in the greater community. Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of things are available and out there if parents are wanting to introduce their kids to things, or the kids are just looking for something more to stretch their brains?
All right. If you've got a kid who really enjoys puzzles, it may be time to introduce them to the concept of the puzzle hunt. A puzzle hunt is not a scavenger hunt. It's not run around looking for objects. A puzzle hunt at its most basic level is a series of puzzles and often a sequence of puzzles that leads to a final punchline or answer to a riddle or something. They're often done as team events. You get on a team with 5 or 6 people and solve the puzzles that have been handed to you. And by solving a puzzle, you might unlock some other puzzle that you have to go and solve that. And it's working together with your team and trying to get to the finish line first. And it's just a really great way of amping up the puzzle love. It becomes part of it becomes a community event. It becomes a team event. I mean, I love just curling up on the sofa and solving a puzzle, but I really love co-solving, either with my daughter on those video games like I talked about, or with my friends at a puzzle event. It's just so much, it's just so much better than just doing it entirely by yourself. Now, there are puzzle hunts out there. I'll later on, I'll steer you to my website where I do my work, and I've got puzzle hunts for kids there that you can print out and do, parent and child or sibling and child, just, print them out and do them. But there are places where you can go. Unfortunately, not a lot. They tend to be restricted to larger cities, but they are out there. Let me name a couple of things.
Yeah.
There's something called the Puzzled Pint. It takes place in, well, bars and restaurants all around the world on the second Tuesday of the month, I want to say. But if you go to puzzled.com, that will correct me. It is a purposefully easy puzzle hunt that to play with your friends or with your families. It's usually just 5 puzzles. It's meant to be done in an hour, hour and a half, while having some appetizers or a drink or whatever. And it's just a nice, fun community team solving event. There's something that existed for a while and then kind of faded away with the pandemic, but is coming back this fall called Dash, Different Area, Same Hunt. This is a more complicated and time consuming puzzle hunt. And it may not be for the littlest kids, but if you have a truly puzzle passionate teenager, that you may want to look into this. This is a puzzle hunt that is run, as the name implies, in different cities throughout America, maybe in other cities and other countries as well, all on the same day. You get together with your team. Every city has it mapped out in different places in their particular city. They customize the hunt to their city, and you walk around from park to park or from place to place and solve the puzzle and just have a really nice day out with your friends or with your family. And again, you're trying to get to the finish line for everybody else, but honestly, winning is completely beside the point. If you get to the finish line at all, then it's cheers and yay for us and let's go have dinner, and it's a really wonderful day.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Go ahead, keep going. You were going to tell us another one?
I'm going to give you now, having worked our way up the ladder, let's jump right to the top of Mount Everest. That is the MIT Mystery Hunt. The MIT Mystery Hunt, I talked earlier about a puzzle hunt that you can print out and solve just you and somebody else, and it'll take you an hour or so, two people solving together. Puzzle Pint, you might need four people to solve it in an hour and a half. The MIT Mystery Hunt, I am on a team of about 100 people. And this past year, we did not finish. There are hundreds of puzzles given to the teams over the course of Martin Luther King weekend. It's held the same weekend every year. It's held at MIT, obviously. It's the MIT Mystery Hunt. The puzzles are the most devious, insane things you have ever set your eyes on. There are rarely instructions. It's often just a bunch of random pictures or a bunch of random words or a grid with no clues. And you have to figure out what to do. And every breakthrough that you have is like the best lightning bolt of aha that you could hope for. And this is why we do it. We do it for the aha moment. We do it for the rush that you get when you say this is an impossible puzzle. Wait a minute. Wait, I got it. I know what's happening here. Guys, listen. And it's so much fun and it's so exhilarating. I've been doing this for close to 30 years now. And it's one of the highlights of the year for me, just getting together with my team and solving or watching be solved these incredibly difficult puzzles. And we have had kids on Palindrome. My team, did I say my team name is Palindrome? We've had kids on my team over the years. Years ago, I was captain of my team for like 15 years. And back in like 2015 or so, I was contacted by a dad. I don't know if he was a homeschool dad, but his kid was smart. And this kid was obsessed with the mystery hunt. And he said, this is going to be his Christmas present. I want to take him to MIT so he could really experience it. Can I join your team? And I said, heck yes, you can. And so this 12-year-old came out and joined us. And as luck would have it, came out for what turned out to be the longest hunt on record. It's
Wow.
supposed to end on Sunday. This one went to like Monday afternoon. It was a completely insane thing. So where was this kid? Sunday at 3 in the morning? Was he back at the hotel crying that he wanted to go home? No, he was solving chess puzzles next to our best solvers and just being a complete part of the team. The finale, which we were only one of two teams to get to do that year, included a freaking laser maze that you had to walk through, and he solved it. He was going through the lasers, and I was so happy for that kid. More than one person said to me, "That is Winston Breen, you know." I said, "I know, I know, I know."
I love that when kids get a chance to join in real things like that, and they don't have to be. It's something that I'm super passionate about just because of my background, but they don't have to not be who they are. They get to excel if they're able to excel in a different area. And I think that puzzles can be a great equalizer for that. They can bring people together and build on collaboration and creativity and critical
Absolutely.
thinking and all of those great things that make up the thinking skills that we need in this world, especially right now, where we can take in all the information and synthesize it in the way that it can be in a way that it can be used, and then go out into the world and make ourselves who we're supposed to be. So great for that kid. That's amazing. On a smaller scale, I've taken my kids with other adults, which I think it's the best way for kids to experience things like this anyway, where they get to be in mixed age groups with adults and kids, littler and bigger, to escape rooms with the same kind of premise, where you're solving problem after problem after problem. They're so fun.
Love escape rooms. Love
Yeah.
escape rooms. I've done them all over the country.
Yeah, they're great. I've spoken at homeschool conventions, and there's a friend of mine who speaks at conventions as well. And one of her things for a couple of years was every city we went to, finding an escape room and hitting it one of the nights. So we could unwind after all of the speaking and chatting and whatever you do, being on your feet all day, and just do something fun, but still, getting your brain working. So escape rooms are great for kids and families alike.
Oh,
So
100%. My daughter and I have done dozens of them. One of my best memories, she joined me. I'm a member of an organization. You're going to be shocked by this. I'm a member of the National Puzzlers League, and they have a convention every year. And I brought my daughter with me to one. We went to Boston together. She was like 11 years old or something, 12 years old maybe. And we also hit a couple of escape rooms. And so this little girl was with me, and some of the most passionate, smartest, most ridiculous puzzlers in the nation. I mean, crossword champions and she was kind of overwhelmed. But she solved the final puzzle when the rest of us were completely stopped because it fed right into what we were talking about earlier, the whole visual learning thing.
Yeah.
This final puzzle didn't have to do with words. It had to do with symbols, and it was just so right up her alley. And she just whooshed it out right from underneath all of us puzzle crazed adults. She was 6 feet tall walking out of that place, and I was too. It was such a great moment.
I bet that was for both of you. That's incredible.
Hey there. Okay, so you've heard me talk about CTC Math a lot on this podcast and in my newsletter because CTC is the math program we use and we love. I am a subscriber. I paid for my own subscription. I've been a customer for years. My children use it. I love CTC because it's adaptable. It is taught to mastery. It shows you their mastery level. You can move on when kids learn something. You can go backwards if they need extra help with something. You can do a couple grade levels in a year if you need to. You can skip grade levels. Every subscription includes access to K through calculus. So you can use whatever part you need. You don't have to be locked in to one grade level. I love, love, love that. I also love the people behind the company. They stand behind their product. If at any point you feel CTC is not working out for you, reach out to them and they will help you. They will get you squared away. They will help figure it out so you can be successful. And if you still don't think it's going to work for you, they'll give you your money back. You really can't lose using this program. It's the best there is. It really, truly is. It's the most adaptable, the most cost-effective, and the greatest people. So check them out, ctcmath.com, and let them know I sent you because I want them to know how much we appreciate them. People have written in, like my friend Carol, to tell me that they are grateful that they heard about CTC Math because they had a kiddo who just wasn't moving forward. And by being able to kind of game the system and skip the areas that they already knew and move ahead towards other grade levels and complete a couple in a year, made their kid motivated. And so Carol reached out to tell me that she was grateful that she'd heard about CTC. If you have a story like Carol, I'd love for you to share it with me. Just hit reply in any of my newsletters or go over to the show notes for this episode where you can find a link to CTC Math and you can find a link to my contact page so you can reach out and let me know what you think about them because I would love to hear who else is finding success with CTC. If you're having any trouble with the program, reach out to CTC because they're great and they will help you in any way you need. All right, check them out, ctcmath.com, and let's get back with today's episode.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about, you mentioned that listeners, if they want, they can get a sample of some of your puzzle
Yeah.
stamps. Can you talk about that?
So, as I say, my main outlet is puzzlesnacks.com. Yeah. I have a free puzzle that I post on the main homepage every month. We are taping this on March 1st, so I actually just put up the puzzle a little while ago. And if you go into the shop, you will find the little kid-friendly puzzle hunts that I talked about earlier. And if you scroll way down, you will see free stuff. And there is a sampler pack of 10 puzzle snacks, 10 completely different kinds of puzzles. It's not like a crossword 10 times. Right. There's this puzzle and that puzzle and a completely different puzzle, and no two puzzles are the same. So if you go and try those, you'll get a really good sense of who I am as a puzzle maker. And if you enjoy them, you should subscribe.
Yeah. So we're going to link to that in the show notes along with all of your other resources and your books. I have another question though, before we wrap it up. How did you get into making puzzles though? Because most people just go solving them. So how did you flip the script in your brain to decide I'm going to create them and not just consume them?
I think it's where you wind up after you solve 1 billion puzzles.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been solving puzzles from literally my earliest memories are of solving puzzles. with my grandmother who bought me WordSeek books. And we would sit together and solve WordSeeks together. And, I all through school, after school, I started freelancing for Games Magazine. I started meeting, real professional puzzle makers. And somewhere along the lines, I'm like, well, I want to do this myself. And I started making really bad puzzles because I didn't know what I was doing. But then I kept at it, and I decided I wanted to sell one crossword to the New York Times just to say that I did it. And now I've had like 50 in the New York Times. And I fell into it and I love it, and I'm going to keep doing it forever.
I think sometimes the best things come out of stuff like that. We love doing them, so we try to create them, and we fall into this passion that we can make a living out of. And I think that those are the best livings to make.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and for parents who are listening, one of the things I've talked about it before on the podcast and in the community that I host for homeschool families with Outside the Box Kids, that idea of encouraging our kids to, at the very least, create as much as they consume, but preferably create more than they consume. This is a great way to get started on that. Oh, you love puzzles? That's great. Let's see if you can, solve these 10 and see if you can come up with one to stump me on your own.
I did a chat once with there are a couple of gifted classrooms around the country that put my puzzles into their curriculums, and I chat with them every once in a while. And they said, "Oh, we're using this particular kind of software. Do you know this software of blah blah blah?" I'm like, "No, I don't know what that is." "Oh, we're using it to improve your puzzles." They were too easy for this group, so they were making the puzzles harder for themselves. But it was just that blew me away. We're improving your puzzles. Oh,
That's
well, thank
funny.
you. I
That is
appreciate
such
it.
a gifted classroom thing to say too, and to do. That's hilarious. I love that. Okay, okay, so as we wrap up and before I tell everybody, where they can find you, is there any like last thing that you would say to parents who are listening? Remember, these are parents, outside the box thinkers, creative kids, homeschool families, just about puzzles, the importance of them, or why you should incorporate them, or anything that we didn't say that you really wish that you could get to parents.
Actually, there is one more angle on this that I would
Okay,
like to bring up.
absolutely.
My Puzzle Snacks puzzles are determinedly, you print them out and you put them on a clipboard and you solve them. There are no screens involved in this. And I think there is a lot to be said for that.
Mhm.
Uh, I, I am a big advocate for the printed book, and I am a big advocate for printing out the puzzle and getting a pencil and solving it that way. Maybe with mom or dad right next to you on the sofa, some good music is on. It's a great way to get away from all the electronics that invade our lives. I I, I think it's a genuinely important part of this.
Yeah, definitely. And it's an important skill that sometimes we forget about, especially again, as homeschool families with all the resources. When I started homeschooling 15 years ago, and I'm assuming because you have a 21-year-old also, that you were at least that long ago, maybe even longer ago, we didn't have as many resources as we do now. And we certainly didn't have as many online resources. And it would be really easy to fall into having them be doing everything online. My kids' math program currently is online because I like the bite-sized lessons that somebody else is teaching them. But I make a concerted effort with every new skill to have my kids pull it off onto paper, line up their numbers so they could solve if they just had a piece of paper and a pencil and not a calculator or a phone with them. And so it's important to make sure that we're balancing that. Absolutely. And just the idea of sitting down with your kids to do something like this. There's always time for connection. It's so
Yeah,
important. And this is a great way to connect with your kids. I love that.
100% it is. Yes.
All right. So people can find you puzzlesnacks.com. Where else can they find you and your books around the web in the world, or if they want to connect with you? I heard something about some social media that you're just starting out.
That is true. So puzzlesnacks.com is the main place. You can find me, my personal website is ericberlin.com. I have some new Puzzle Snacks collections that are sort of direct to print exclusively at Amazon. If you go to Amazon and search on Puzzle Snacks, they will come up. And yeah, no, I'm starting to do the whole social media thing. You can find me on Instagram where I am Puzzle Snacks. And you can find me on TikTok, where unfortunately I am Puzzle Snacks 4.
Oh,
Puzzle
okay.
Snacks number 4. I don't know why. I screwed up or whatever. Anyway, Puzzle Snacks 4. And at both of these places, I am posting video puzzles. I almost said every day. I'm posting video puzzles frequently. Let's just say that. So it's one more way to exercise your mind, and one more way for me to connect to other puzzlers out there.
Super fun. Can't wait to go see some of those videos. I just learned about the TikTok, if you're listening, so I'm going to go check it out too, because it's on my agenda. It's the way of the future, right? The short form video.
It is the way of the present.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for being here. I really appreciate this conversation. And I know that so many of the parents who are listening are going to go snap up some of your books and check out your website.
It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you again.
I appreciate it. All right. Thank you all for listening. I know there are so many different things you can do with your time, and that you are taking the time to listen to this podcast, this episode, and working on being a better homeschool mom, connecting with your kids. Like, you're already winning. You're doing all the things. Be proud of yourself. Take some time this week to connect with your kids, grab some puzzles, go on an adventure, do something fun together, stretch those brains. I'll be back next week, same place, same time. Bye for now.